The legend of the monster emerges. In a faraway galaxy, whispers of an ancient creature spread through the stars like wildfire. Its name was feared by every race in the galaxy, from the towering beings of the Zorith Empire to the small, cunning traders of the Crescent System. No one dared to speak of it openly, for the mere mention of its name would send shivers down the bravest warriors' spines. This creature, this so-called monster, was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Tales of its monstrous size, incredible strength, and unmatched speed had turned into legends that terrified the citizens of countless planets. There were no real images of the creature, only fragmented accounts from survivors who barely escaped with their lives. They spoke of glowing eyes that pierced the darkness, claws as long as a human's arm, and a roar that could shake the foundations of a planet. Some claimed it was a force of nature, an unstoppable power, a beast of destruction. Others believed it was a living weapon, created by some ancient civilization to destroy their enemies, a weapon now beyond control. For generations, this beast had been nothing more than a bedtime story used to frighten children. The galaxy's various species had long thought it was nothing but a myth, an old tale passed down from one generation to the next. That was until something began to happen. Planets that had once been thriving with life began to fall silent. The once bustling trade routes went quiet. News of entire colonies disappearing without a trace spread like a poison across the stars. The monster wasn't a myth. It was real. The first reports came from the distant planet of Vorik, a mining colony known for its large deposits of precious metals. Vorik was a peaceful world, with few military forces, and most of its population consisted of miners and families. But one day, the communications from the planet stopped. The few ships that tried to enter Vorik's orbit never returned. The galaxy's governing body sent ships to investigate, but none came back. When the first rescue fleet arrived at Vorik, what they found sent a cold chill down their spines. The once bustling city was now nothing more than rubble. Buildings that had stood tall for generations were reduced to piles of dust. The air was thick with smoke, and the sky was dim, as if the sun itself had been blocked by some unseen force. But it wasn't the destruction that had them terrified. It was the silence. There was no sign of life, no sign of anything that could explain the devastation. The ground was covered in deep claw marks, too large and sharp for any normal creature to have made. But the worst part was the eerie, glowing footprints that led deep into the heart of the mining colony. The rescue team tried to investigate, but every time they ventured too deep into the ruins, strange occurrences happened. They would hear strange growls, flashes of red light would appear in the distance, and every now and then, they would find the remains of their fellow soldiers, torn apart with brutal force. The monster's presence was undeniable. It was hunting them, picking them off one by one. After Vorik, things began to get worse. More reports came in from other colonies, from even the most secure systems, ships going missing, entire fleets vanishing without a trace. The name of the creature, once spoken only in fear, began to resurface in every conversation. The monster was no longer a myth, and the galaxy was beginning to realize the horrible truth. It was hunting them. Every race, every empire, and every colony was at risk. The rulers of the galaxy's great empires, from the Zorith Empire to the powerful human colonies, began to take action. They assembled their greatest warriors and sent them on missions to find and eliminate the beast. But no one returned. For years, the galaxy's greatest minds and generals debated over what this monster really was. Some believed it was a powerful creature from another galaxy, seeking to conquer or destroy all in its path. Others believed it was a weapon gone rogue, built by ancient civilizations for purposes lost to time. But no one knew for certain. What they did know was that the creature was unlike anything they had ever seen before, and it was unstoppable. The monster had become a symbol of fear and helplessness, a dark shadow looming over the galaxy. Entire planets were abandoned as their inhabitants fled, hoping to escape its wrath. Even the most powerful military forces trembled at the thought of facing the beast. But what they didn't know was that the monster was not the real threat. What lay hidden behind its monstrous image was a story far deeper and more complex than any of them could imagine. The truth was buried beneath centuries of lies, myths, and fear. The monster was not a mindless killer. It was a protector, a guardian, one who had been forced into a role that none of the galaxy's inhabitants could ever comprehend. As the galaxy continued to struggle with the fear of this creature, one small group of individuals was about to discover the truth. A team of elite soldiers, chosen not for their strength or their skill in combat, but for their ability to see beyond the obvious, was about to uncover the greatest secret the galaxy had ever known. And it all began with the monster. The mysterious encounter. The soldiers arrived at the desolate planet of Vorik, and the atmosphere felt heavy with the weight of unknown horrors. The air was thick with the scent of burnt metal, and the sky was cast in an eerie twilight, as though the sun had been obscured by some unseen force. Nothing seemed right about this place. The once thriving colony, now reduced to rubble, whispered of a history that had been wiped out in an instant. Captain Valen, the leader of the squad, signaled to his team. They were a group of seasoned soldiers, trained to face any threat. But this felt different. There was no sign of life, no movement, just silence, broken only by the occasional gust of wind. "We stick together," Captain Valen said, his voice steady, though his hands gripped his weapon tightly. "We find answers. Move out." The squad moved cautiously through the ruins, scanning the area for any signs of danger. Their boots crunched over the dusty ground, disturbing the silence that had claimed the once bustling city. They passed buildings that had collapsed, some still smoldering, while others were reduced to nothing more than skeletal frames. As they ventured deeper into the wreckage, strange markings appeared on the walls, scratches, deep gouges that seemed too precise to be from natural forces. Large claw marks, some as wide as a human torso, scared the sides of buildings. The walls were covered in a thick red substance, almost like dried blood. But there was something off about it. It was dark and glistening, almost alive. "Keep your eyes peeled," Valen instructed, his voice laced with concern. "Something's not right here." The team reached the central square of the colony, where a massive crater stood in the middle. This was the heart of the destruction, a large jagged hole in the ground, deep and unnatural, as though something had landed there. It wasn't from a crash. No ship could have made this. The team gathered around, looking down into the dark abyss. Suddenly, a low guttural growl echoed from deep within the crater. The sound was unlike anything they had heard before. It was deep, resonating in their bones, and it sent a chill through every soldier. "Everyone, get back," Valen ordered, raising his weapon. But it was too late. From the shadows emerged a figure, large and hulking, moving with unsettling speed. The soldiers tensed, aiming their guns, but they hesitated. What they saw was not what they expected. The creature was covered in scars, its body massive and rippling with muscle. It had the appearance of a terrifying monster, with large, glowing eyes that pierced through the darkness. But as it emerged into the dim light, the soldiers saw something that gave them pause. The monster was not charging at them, as they had anticipated. Instead, it was limping, its movements slow and deliberate, as though it was wounded. It was not attacking them. It was trying to escape. The creature stopped at the edge of the crater, its glowing eyes locking onto the soldiers, as though assessing them. It didn't growl or roar, but instead, there was a soft whimper, almost like a cry for help. The soldiers stood frozen, unsure of how to react. "Stay calm," Valen whispered to his team. "We don't know what this thing is capable of." One of the soldiers, a young woman named Ceres, took a step forward, lowering her weapon. She was the most experienced with alien life forms and had been trained in diplomacy. She wasn't about to fire without understanding the creature's intentions. "Easy," she said softly, holding her hand out in a non-threatening gesture. "We're not here to hurt you." The creature's eyes flickered in response, the glowing light dimming slightly. It took a cautious step forward, and the soldiers tensed, ready to defend themselves at a moment's notice. But instead of attacking, the creature did something unexpected. It collapsed to the ground, its massive body shaking. It was clear now. This monster was not what they thought it was. It wasn't a mindless killer. It was in pain. "Get the med kit," Valen barked, now realizing that the situation had changed. They weren't facing an enemy. They were facing something, or someone, who needed help. As Ceres knelt beside the creature, she noticed something that stopped her cold. The monster's body was covered in wounds, deep gashes that looked as though they had been caused by weapons. And there, just above its shoulder, was a strange, metal implant, one that seemed to be controlling its movements, its mind. It looked like a device meant to restrain and control the creature. Ceres gasped. This isn't just a monster, it's been turned into one. The realization hit them all at once. The creature wasn't attacking them because it wanted to. It wasn't even acting on its own will. It had been turned into a weapon, a mindless instrument of destruction, controlled by whoever had created it. And now it was trying to break free. "We need to help it," Ceres said, her voice urgent. "It's not our enemy." Valen looked down at the creature, his mind racing. The legend of the monster was far more complicated than anyone had believed. This was not a mindless killer, it was a victim. And if they didn't act fast, it might be too late to stop whoever had created it. The soldiers had a choice to make. They could continue to hunt the monster as they were ordered, or they could try to help it, to understand its true nature. In that moment, they realized the creature had a purpose beyond their understanding, a purpose that could change the fate of the galaxy itself. And so, the team decided to take a risk, to uncover the secrets of the monster, and perhaps uncover something even more dangerous lurking in the shadows. The real battle was just beginning. The unexpected revelation. The soldiers set up a makeshift camp around the injured creature, carefully tending to its wounds. The monster's body was massive, its scales dark and tough, but despite its terrifying appearance, it appeared more vulnerable than they had initially thought. Ceres worked swiftly to stabilize it, applying bandages to the creature's gashes and trying to ease its pain. The glowing eyes that had once struck fear into their hearts were now dimmed, filled with something far more human: fear and confusion. As the creature settled, its breathing labored but steady, the soldiers gathered around, exchanging uneasy glances. There was a new tension in the air, one that had nothing to do with fear of the monster and everything to do with what they had just uncovered. "This isn't what we thought," Valen murmured, his gaze fixed on the creature. "It's not just a mindless beast. It's been twisted into something else." Ceres nodded. Whoever did this to it, they turned it into a weapon with no will of its own. The revelation was both troubling and strange. The soldiers had been trained for combat, to face enemies who would try to destroy everything in their path, but nothing had prepared them for this. A creature, once a warrior, now a victim of some dark, unknown force. They needed answers. "Let's move out," Valen said after a long pause, his voice now filled with determination. "We've seen what this creature can do, but we need to know who did this to it, and why." The team gathered their gear and carefully moved forward, with the creature in tow. It seemed reluctant to leave its position, but followed them with a hesitant step, its movements still weak, but with a clear intent to assist. The soldiers weren't sure if the creature was truly trying to help them, or if it was simply following a command it could not ignore, but they moved forward with caution, unsure of what lay ahead. After trekking deeper into the planet's wilderness, they came upon an abandoned outpost, its walls scorched and overgrown with wild plants. It looked like it had been deserted for years, but as they drew closer, they noticed the faintest signs of life. A trail of strange, metallic footprints led toward the entrance, and faint lights flickered from within. Velen signaled for the squad to approach quietly. They moved in the shadows, knowing that whatever answers they sought could be behind those walls. Inside, the team found more evidence of the creature's torment. The walls of the outpost were lined with alien symbols and strange devices, some of which appeared to be tools for experimenting or implanting devices into living beings. "We're getting close," Ceres whispered, her eyes scanning the surroundings. "Whatever happened to this creature? It's tied to whoever built this place." A loud, sudden noise interrupted their thoughts. A door creaked open, and out stepped a figure cloaked in shadow, wearing an imposing exosuit. It was clear from the way the figure carried itself that they were not an ordinary scientist or explorer. This was someone with power, someone who had engineered this nightmare. "Who are you?" Valen demanded, stepping forward, his weapon aimed carefully at the figure. "What have you done to that creature?" The figure chuckled darkly, its voice mechanical and hollow. "Ah, the soldiers of the Empire, always ready to fight. But you don't understand. You never will." The figure stepped into the light, revealing an alien creature, a mix of synthetic armor and organic matter. Its face was partially hidden behind a mask, but the faint glow of its eyes was enough to send a chill down the soldiers' spines. "I'm the one who turned the so-called monster into what it is now," the alien revealed. "But it's not just a mindless weapon. It's a sentinel created to protect this galaxy from the true threat." The soldiers exchanged confused glances. "Protect? From what?" Valen demanded, his grip tightening on his weapon. The alien laughed softly, almost regretfully. "From the ones who created it. You see, this galaxy was never as peaceful as it seemed. There are forces out there, forces that would destroy everything. I created the monster to stop them." The creature, the monster, was beginning to stir, its large eyes now focused on the alien. The soldiers had been so caught up in their fear of the creature, they hadn't realized that it wasn't the true threat. The true enemy had been hidden in plain sight all along. "The mind controllers," Ceres muttered. "They're the real danger." The alien nodded. "Yes. The monster was a weapon created to fight against them, against the ones who seek to control the minds of entire civilizations, to twist them into slaves. This creature was never meant to be your enemy. It was meant to be a protector." The realization hit like a thunderclap. The creature they had thought of as a monster was, in fact, a guardian. It had been twisted into a weapon, forced to fight against its own nature to protect a galaxy that didn't even understand its purpose. But now the true battle had begun. The soldiers had to decide whether they would continue to hunt the creature, or if they would stand with it, fighting against the true enemy, the ones who had created this nightmare in the first place. The creature, once thought to be a mindless beast, was now a hero. A reluctant hero, perhaps, but a hero nonetheless. And as the soldiers realized this, they knew that their role had changed. They were no longer simply soldiers of the Empire. They were now part of something much larger, something that could change the fate of the entire galaxy. And the creature was just the beginning. The hidden truth. The alien stood motionless, its glowing eyes locked onto the creature, now slowly rising to its feet, its movements more controlled than before. There was a tension in the air, as if the entire situation was teetering on the edge of something monumental. The soldiers had come to the planet to destroy the monster, to finish what they had been ordered to do. But now, they were standing at the precipice of something far more complicated. The creature was not the enemy. The true threat lay much deeper, in the hands of those who controlled minds and manipulated life itself. Captain Valen stepped forward, lowering his weapon but keeping it close. He had heard enough, but there was still so much he needed to understand. "So you turned this creature into a weapon to stop an even greater enemy?" he asked, his voice steady but laced with skepticism. "Why didn't you tell anyone? Why hide it?" The alien's mechanical voice hummed with a cold bitterness. "Because no one would have believed me. I was part of a faction within the galaxy's power structure, those who had seen the dangers and tried to warn the leaders of the coming storm. But they refused to listen. The enemy we're facing isn't a single race or civilization. It's an idea, a dark, controlling force that seeks to enslave every species, every planet. The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of the words sinking in. They had always believed that the galaxy was a series of factions, each trying to rise above the others. The Empire, the Zorath, the Crescent System. But this new threat wasn't about power or conquest. It was about control. The ones who created this creature, the alien continued, they control minds, bend people to their will. They've done it for centuries. They were behind the creation of armies and weapons across the galaxy. But they couldn't take full control. Not until they discovered this planet, Vorak. Ceres took a cautious step forward. But why make the monster? Why choose this creature? The alien's gaze flickered to the creature, who stood silently at the center of the room. The monster was never a true monster. It was one of the last of its kind, an ancient guardian race, gifted with power that no other species had. They were protectors, warriors. I modified it, reprogrammed it, to fight against the true enemy. It was the only way to stop them. But you turned it into something else, Valen said, his voice firm. You made it a tool of war, stripped it of its free will, and forced it to fight when it didn't want to. How could you justify that? The alien's eyes narrowed, its voice dropping into something more regretful. I didn't have a choice. The enemy was coming. They were gathering strength. They had to be stopped, and the galaxy was blind to the threat. I created the monster to fight them, but I never imagined the toll it would take. I thought the creature could withstand the control, the mind-altering devices I implanted. But I was wrong. The control failed. The creature became something unpredictable. It fought back against the programming, but in doing so, it lost its purpose. It became a creature of rage and confusion, just as you saw it. There was a heavy silence as the soldiers processed the alien's words. The monster, this misunderstood creature, was not the evil force they had been led to believe. It was, in fact, the one thing standing between them and the galaxy's destruction. But why now? Ceres asked. Why did the creature start attacking? The alien stepped closer to the group, his gaze shifting between them. Because it was free. The mind control was wearing off. The creature was beginning to regain its sense of self, its memory. But it was still trapped in a world of confusion. It didn't know who it was anymore, whether it was a weapon or a protector. It lashed out because it didn't know what else to do. The soldiers were silent, each one trying to make sense of what had just been revealed. The creature wasn't the villain. It was the one who had been betrayed, the one who had been twisted into something it was never meant to be. And the enemy? Valen asked, his voice determined now. Where are they? Who are they? The alien's expression darkened. The ones who control minds. They've infiltrated every aspect of the galaxy. They've been working in the shadows for centuries. They hide behind the guise of peace, of order, but they are nothing but tyrants. They are the ones who created this monster, but they also created wars, conflicts, anything that could keep the galaxy divided. It's how they gain power. They make you fight each other so that you're too weak to see the truth. They control everyone from behind the scenes. Ceres stepped forward, her mind racing with the implications. And now they're coming for us. The alien nodded. Yes, they've already begun. Their reach is vast. You'll start to see it soon. The subtle shifts, the changes in your own people. The galaxy will be manipulated into chaos, and by the time you realize what's happening, it will be too late. The monster was the first line of defense, but it can't fight alone. We need to stop them before they finish what they've started. A deep sense of urgency filled the room. The soldiers had been trained to fight wars, to fight tangible enemies, but this was something different. The enemy wasn't an army or a fleet, it was an idea. A shadow that had been growing for centuries, hidden behind every conflict, every assassination, every revolution. The monster, once thought to be the galaxy's greatest threat, was actually its greatest hope, and the soldiers were the ones who had to bring the truth to light. "We need to act fast," Valen said, his voice resolute. "We can't let them win. We'll stop them together, monster or not." The creature, still weak but growing stronger, stepped forward. Its eyes glowed faintly, no longer filled with confusion, but with a sense of purpose. It was ready to fight again, to fulfill its true role, to protect the galaxy from the shadows. And so, the team, now united with the creature they had once feared, set out to confront the true enemy. The galaxy's future was at stake, and the first battle of many had just begun. The monster was no longer a mindless weapon. It was their ally, their protector, and together, they would fight to save the galaxy from those who sought to control it. The unexpected hero. The squad, now united with the creature they had once hunted, prepared for their next move. The enemy that had remained in the shadows for so long was closing in, and time was running out. The aliens' warning had been clear. The mind-controlling forces were everywhere, lurking beneath the surface of galactic politics and influence, ready to strike when least expected. The creature, no longer just a monster, stood silently beside the team, its enormous frame casting a shadow over the soldiers. Its glowing eyes were steady now, no longer filled with confusion or rage. It had been a guardian, and now it had a chance to become that again. "Are you sure it can still fight?" Ceres asked, her voice hesitant. "After everything it's been through, I'm not sure it has the strength." Captain Valen turned to her, his gaze steady. "It's more than strength. It's the will to protect. The monster we thought we knew was a victim. Now it's our ally." The creature gave a low growl, but this time it wasn't threatening. It was a sound of recognition, of agreement. It wasn't a weapon anymore. It was a hero, one that had been hiding behind a mask of fear and rage, only to be brought out into the light by those who saw the truth. They had to move fast. The mind control network was vast, and the alien had warned them that the enemy was already beginning to manipulate key figures in the galaxy. Their first mission was to infiltrate one of the enemy's strongholds, a heavily fortified base on the planet of HFY. The soldiers' mission wasn't just about fighting. It was about exposing the truth. They needed to find evidence of the enemy's mind control technology and bring it to light. The journey to HFY was long and treacherous. The squad traveled in silence, the weight of their mission pressing on each of them. Their once clear roles had blurred. Now, they weren't just soldiers. They were part of something much larger. They were protectors of the truth. Upon arrival, they entered HFY's atmosphere under the cover of darkness. They had no time to waste. As they landed, the creature's massive form moved silently with the team, staying close behind them, its eyes glowing faintly in the shadows. The soldiers were equipped with stealth gear, but they still couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. "Stay low," Valen whispered. "We don't know how deep their presence runs here." As they approached the enemy's base, the squad used the creature's size to their advantage. It was a decoy, drawing the attention of the enemy forces as the rest of the team snuck inside the facility. The creature wasn't just fighting for them, it was fighting for something much greater. Its past had been darkened by manipulation, but now it was free, determined to protect. Inside the base, Ceres and the others began to search for the mind control technology, finding evidence of cruel experiments. What they discovered was worse than anything they could have imagined. The technology didn't just control minds, it altered them, turning once powerful leaders into puppets of the true enemy. The soldiers found records detailing how entire fleets and colonies had been taken over, their leaders unknowingly manipulated into starting wars and conflicts to keep the galaxy in chaos. "This is it," Ceres muttered, her voice a mix of shock and disgust. "This is how they've been doing it. This is how they control everything." But just as they were about to send the evidence back to their fleet, alarms blared, and red lights flooded the base. The mind control forces had detected their intrusion. "They know we're here," Valen said, his voice grim. "We've got to get out. Now." The squad quickly retreated toward the exit, but as they turned to leave, they were met with a wall of enemies, soldiers controlled by the mind manipulators, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. "We'll never make it out in time," Saris said, her voice urgent as she scanned their surroundings. That's when the creature stepped forward, its enormous body blocking the soldiers' path. It had heard the fear in their voices, felt the urgency of the moment. This was its purpose. This was what it was meant to do. With a low growl, the creature charged, its massive form a blur of motion. The controlled soldiers tried to fight back, but the creature was unstoppable. Its claws slashed through the air, each strike a testament to its raw power. It was no longer a mindless beast. It was a protector, defending those who had given it a second chance. Valen and the rest of the squad stood back, watching as the creature fought with a ferocity and determination they had never seen before. It was as if every strike, every blow was a release, a way to fight for freedom, for justice. "This is what it was meant to be," Saris whispered, awe in her voice. "A hero, not a monster." The battle was fierce, but the creature, with the soldiers at its side, managed to break through the enemy's defenses. With the mind-controlled soldiers neutralized, the squad made their way to the heart of the base, where the enemy's leader awaited them. The enemy leader, once a powerful and respected figure, stood there in the shadows, a cruel smirk on their face. "You think you can stop me? You're too late." But the creature, the once feared monster, stepped forward, its eyes glowing brightly. It wasn't afraid anymore. It wasn't just a tool of war. It was the galaxy's last hope. And as it advanced toward the leader, the soldiers followed, knowing that they had uncovered the truth. Together, they would stop the real enemy. Together, they would save the galaxy. The monster was not just a weapon. It was the unexpected hero the galaxy had needed all along. The final stand and a new beginning. The tension in the air was palpable as the creature and the squad approached the enemy leader. The leader, a tall figure cloaked in dark armor, stood confidently, their eyes burning with arrogance. They had controlled entire fleets, manipulated entire races, and now they thought victory was within their grasp. "You really believe you can defeat me?" The enemy leader sneered, their voice dripping with disdain. "You think that creature can stop me? I control the galaxy's leaders. They will do anything I tell them." But the creature's eyes burned with a deep, unwavering resolve. It was no longer the weapon it had been twisted into. It had reclaimed its purpose. It was no longer the monster. It was the protector. And it was ready to stand against this false god, this manipulator of minds. Valen stepped forward, his voice firm. "You've played your games for far too long. But the truth is finally coming to light. Your control ends today." The enemy leader's eyes narrowed, sensing the gravity of the moment. "You think exposing me will change anything? You are nothing against me." Before the leader could react, the creature lunged, its immense form moving with a speed and precision that defied its size. The leader's guards, mind-controlled soldiers who had once fought valiantly, now fell like dominoes before the creature's overwhelming force. The air crackled with energy as the creature's claws met the enemy's defenses, each strike making the ground tremble beneath their feet. But the leader wasn't done yet. With a flick of their wrists, the mind control technology around the base flared to life. The leader's eyes flashed with a sudden surge of power, their hand reaching out to twist the minds of the soldiers, commanding them to turn against their own team. "Stop them," the leader ordered, their voice low and deadly. For a moment, it seemed like the soldiers were losing control. Their own minds were being manipulated, pulled toward the dark influence of the leader. Valen and his team fought the mental pressure, struggling to stay in control. They were not soldiers anymore. They were the last line of defense against something far more dangerous than anything they had ever faced. But in that critical moment, the creature, sensing the shift, stepped in front of the soldiers. It was the protector now, the one who could save them from this trap. The creature's eyes flashed a bright, almost blinding light. The mind control technology that had been used to enslave it, and others began to flicker and burn. With a deafening roar, the creature unleashed an energy wave that disrupted the mind control signals. It was as though every fiber of its being resonated with a deep, powerful energy, a wave of freedom, a wave of defiance. The mind-controlled soldiers fell to their knees, their bodies racked with the force of the wave. The leaders staggered, their power waning as the creature's energy enveloped the room. The leader's smug expression faltered, replaced with a growing fear as they realized the tide had turned. "No, you can't," the leader screamed, but it was too late. With one final powerful blow, the creature crushed the enemy leader's control device, shattering the source of their mind control. The leader, now powerless, collapsed to the ground. The soldiers, once under their influence, slowly regained control of their own minds, their eyes clearing as the dark cloud that had controlled them lifted. The galaxy was free. The monster, the protector, had saved them all. In the aftermath, the soldiers stood over the fallen leader, who was now nothing more than a broken shadow of the power they had once held. But the real victory was the freedom they had restored, the knowledge that the galaxy's citizens would no longer be enslaved to a cruel, manipulative force. Saris turned to the creature, her voice filled with awe and respect. "You did it. You saved us all." The creature, standing tall and proud, gave a low rumble. It wasn't a roar of victory. It was a sound of satisfaction, of relief. Its purpose had been fulfilled. No longer a weapon or a mind-controlled tool, it was now a hero, a true protector of the galaxy. Velen placed a hand on the creature's massive shoulder. "You've earned your place as a protector, not a monster. The galaxy will remember your true legacy." The creature's eyes glowed softly, and for the first time, the soldiers could see the intelligence and nobility behind the once feared eyes. It wasn't a creature of rage or mindless destruction. It was a guardian, one who had fought for freedom, who had fought for peace, and now it would stand beside them as an ally in the fight to rebuild the galaxy. As they made their way back to their ship, the team knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy was free from the immediate threat, but the shadows of the mind-controlling enemy still loomed, waiting for their chance to rise again. They had to remain vigilant. But they weren't alone anymore. The creature, once an enemy in their eyes, was now their ally. Together, they would face whatever challenges came next. Together, they would keep the galaxy safe from the forces that sought to tear it apart. And so, the monster became the hero, the unexpected protector who had saved the galaxy, proving that sometimes the greatest strength comes from embracing the truth, no matter how terrifying it may seem at first. The galaxy's story was far from over, but with the creature by their side, the future looked brighter than ever. The creature had found its true purpose, and the galaxy had found its hero.